because there are things that we need to do to develop, and there are things we need to undo and stop doing. So let's start first with those dualistic perspectives. So when people are in this really dualistic mindset, separation thinking, what's happening is that they're only using part of their potential. So they're using even part of their brain. They're not coming in and integrated whole body, mind, spirit, soul, energetic. So that they're not working from wholeness. So anytime when we're not working from wholeness, we work through partiality. When we're in partiality, we have partial visual, partial understanding, partial capacity. So everything, in my view, becomes slightly distorted. And when you go into the world, not from wholeness, not from your unity with life as life, you're coming into that, it's almost like squeezed, slightly fragmented, a little bit disjointed, not hearing the signals very well and stumbling across. There's a lot of autocorrection that's happening for people where they just feeling like, it's like you're working against yourself. Mm-hmm. So the first capacity, I would say, the first ability is having to recognize, when am I in touch with my whole self? Because I'm going to need that whole self presence, field, consciousness in order to be able to activate and then actualize these deeper potentials and also latent capacities that are there. So we can't access them, these capacities, and develop them simply by knowing about it. If you're activating that potentiality with only a part of yourself, or fighting against the rest of yourself and creating hierarchies and rankings within yourself, then part of your power is running contrary to yourself. And that's why, indeed, in the Future Humans Quest, we're really working with understanding what is power, what is it for, what's a healthy relationship with power, what are the future human powers that emerge from our future human potentials of these higher orders of reality. The starting point is always first knowing, when you're within yourself, present, come back to your own inner wholeness. Now, the wholeness of you, that is a given. That is not something that you have to think about. That is given. It's like you relax into that. You trust into that, and then it's about stopping this inner tension, this inner fighting. So becoming, then next step is then become conscious and aware of ego dynamics. So ego dynamics means that a part of ourselves is becoming dominant over another part. So as soon as the pattern of domination starts to emerge within us, or where we're acting it out in relationship with other people, we are an ego. Because domination always leads to separation, it leads to fragmentation, it leads to the inner divisions, and tensions and conflict, etc. But so that's really understanding that then. So when am I in ego? Shadow is what we are unconscious of about ourselves. So it's recognizing what is ego and shadow, but then instead of trying to fight that, because when people are fighting that, they're again using their own ego to fight against themselves. So you get up, caught in this terrible mental loop. It's then understanding, that means if there's ego and shadow dynamics there, that means all it means is a mirror to underdeveloped capacities of myself. So then you use that behavior to reflect back on yourself to see, what is it about myself that I'm either not loving or liking or trusting? Again, how am I creating a distorted relationship with myself and with life within me and my relationship with life? Mm-hmm. And the moment you're aware of that, that's the moment where it changes. Mm-hmm. And then from that place now of greater wholeness and greater unity, greater love, greater trust within yourself, then it's starting to really reflect on, all of us have active power and capacity of agency, capacity to make change, to make things happen in life. Yeah? Whether it is as simple as getting up in the morning or making breakfast or even having a thought, it doesn't have to be that complicated. Starting with the simple steps, but honoring that first and saying, with that power to make things happen, to take a next step, if this power is truly coming from life, so its origin is this incredible source of consciousness, of wisdom, which has been going through its own evolutionary experiment for billions and billions of years. And it does want to have the greater goodness. Whereas in book 1, Rose discovers her future human potential because she goes through a rebirth. And the future human potentials of this new cycle of time activate within her. Now, what happens in book 2 is they start to activate. And as they start to activate more and more, what happens is it activates her powers. It grows her powers. So it also grows her impact and it grows her influence. But she's not conscious of that yet. So without her realizing it, she starts to attract all kinds of challenges and also situations of dangers, where there is this deeper alchemical fire that's represented as our inner dragon. So the inner dragon is rising up. Yeah. And that, as that is rising up, she hasn't yet learned how does she direct those powers now through the wisdom of the higher heart. Mm-hmm. And the wisdom of the higher heart is like the ancient grail quest. So the higher heart is like the cosmic heart within us. So if we, even from a scientific perspective, understand that the informational architecture of the universe is fractal. So it fractals out in the way that it patterns out, in the way that it expands and diversifies and multiplies, but it still remains unified. Now, we can also say that the cosmic heart, if you're thinking of the cosmic heart, is this great love and beautiful, pure consciousness of love that just flows into the universe, flows into life, yeah? Mm-hmm. And energizes our consciousness with this deeper understanding, this deeper perspective. That means that the cosmic heart is also fractal in us. So within our physical heart is also a fractal of this cosmic heart. And this is then the higher heart of wisdom. And that serves as an incredible protection mechanism. So that when our powers start to activate and awaken, and what happens is that ego, being thirsty for power and influence, will try to hijack some of that. And if we're unconscious about it, we're creating those shadow dynamics. Yeah? So in order to have this kind of internal safeguard mechanism, that the powers that you're developing, that the powers that you're growing are not at that same time being overtaken by your own ego and shadow dynamics, or getting caught in ego and shadow dynamics of others, you then learn to really trust and call upon that cosmic heart in yourself, that higher heart, so that you literally direct and channel those powers, which is also that fire, it's this alchemical fire. You direct it towards the higher coherencies of the heart. Mm. So when that energy, when those capacities are really getting directed towards that higher coherency of the heart, it also is then linked in again with that higher consciousness state of understanding the purpose of that power and the purpose for you within that relationship of the power, what it's here to serve. And that we're not here to serve that power, but working with these powers in service of the evolutionary process of life. So this is, I feel, a really important step right now, because sometimes our power is getting triggered also because of pain. Yeah? And if we're looking what's happening right now in the world, we had a lot of pain triggers with the COVID crisis. Now there is the war in Ukraine, in Eastern Europe, and the ongoing violence by the Russian military and government, where it's horrific what is happening, the genocides. And so there are a lot of pain points for us. And then, of course, there's the worsening climate change crisis. And on top of that, the socioeconomic crisis, financial crisis. So what I'm hearing from a lot of people around me is they're saying there's growing uncertainty, growing fears, and for quite a few people over there expressing is that where they felt first that we were working towards this great new step for humanity, almost as if it looks like we're stepping back in some ways in some old patterns. And that's when it's so important again to work with these future human powers. So these are powers for this time right now that help us to make the transformation so that we don't step in when we feel threatened, when we feel hurt, when we feel challenged, that we're not stepping back into that pattern of domination, not stepping back into another cycle of violence, because the potential for that right now is so big. So if we're looking from an evolutionary perspective, what's the role of ego? Yeah, or what is the universe doing in that moment? Let's just call it individuation. So the universe also individuates itself in space and time. So, and from a quantum perspective, we would call that localization. So localization or individuation. So that within this localized space, there is a context, there is a boundary, and both boundary and context and the autonomy that emerges from wholeness is greater feedback for learning and evolutionary development. So that feeds back to the universal. So we're seeing this pattern, and so that ego is actually a form of localization, individuation, but part of the consciousness now gets disconnected from that process and therefore thinks, oh, that's it. I'm just this and I'm not that. Yeah. So we start to get in that loop. Then we start to develop the unhealthy ego responses. Now, what I've seen for a lot of people who've been going through this kind of spiritual development movement in the last decades, this understanding as if, oh, ego is bad, I shouldn't have it. And then they want to dissolve it and they want to just go back only in the universal and the collective. What you're doing then is you're denying, in some ways, you're rejecting the localization, individuation. You want to go back into the great universal, the one that's not the non-local consciousness. But that's another form. That's a subtle ego that's often not recognized. That's another form of going contrary to the evolutionary process. So it's about recognizing another way of doing individuation and wholeness simultaneously. So then it's not about the ego having to protect your individual self or self-interest, but there is a sense of guardianship for this evolutionary process of life, for being able to be both in your own autonomy, being the individual self of the greater universal self, as well as vice versa. And that's, again, where the heart consciousness is really important, but that it's not about then dissolving the I. It's about the I and the we and the us and this whole dance, holding that simultaneously. And again, that understanding, that perspective is essential for the development of these evolutionary capacities, because that's really at the foundation of it all. The first one, which is my absolute favorite, which is the Ring of Unity. So if for those who have the book Return of the Avatars, you will see the Ring of Unity in the beginning of the book. And that in the Ring of Unity, you have the body of the cosmic serpent and the body of the cosmic dragon. So they're forming one body, two heads. And between them, they're holding an emerald egg. And the egg represents the egg of the new world. And in there are the codings, the future world codings. And as the cosmic dragon and the cosmic serpent are really like avatars, they're avatars for these greater primordial transformational powers that these great archetypes, as well as avatars, then are guiding us how in the fractals, again, how where those powers live in us, how do we get to first of all befriend those powers, because some people can be quite frightened when this dragon rises up and it may come with feeling like I'm so angry, or I feel such an injustice, or this stops now, or, yeah. So we may not understand, or when the great serpent power starts to awaken and we feel this electrified and with Kundalini arising, and what is happening now. So they are really like the archetypes for helping to develop and understand the purpose of those powers. And so this is why we're relating with them from their cosmic expression again. So that's the first one. Then we have another one, is a beautiful one, an infinity hourglass. And so it's also the shape again of the infinity loop, which helps us now to start new cycles and to really being able to flip to flip the patterns in our lives and really work with time creatively to understand what is the consciousness of time, and which time cycle of consciousness are you identifying with. We have the cosmic compass that many people are knowing, because I've been sharing a lot about that. We have the cosmic navel cord, which is so beautiful, which helps us to reconnect with the three mothers, Mother Cosmos, Mother Universe, and Mother Earth, so that we're starting to also being able to make those journeys. And within the Mother Wisdom, we also connect them with the father aspects of that Mother Wisdom, and to be able to receive them, our nourishment from all these beautiful direct source connections and relationships. And you have the singing chalice for learning how to harmonize and activate the eternal codes of life and work with the eternal spring of life. So this is, and the fertility that's really there in the cosmic mother. We have the firestones of darkness and light, and which is where we are working with the feminine and masculine qualities, but also with the dual aspects of our powers. And when you learn how to work with those dual aspects, how we're working that they become alchemically attracted to bring forth the alchemical flame of love. And the cosmic mirror, which helps us to be able to become aware of areas within ourselves that we may not have been conscious of, but also how the future self can use the cosmic mirror to kind of beam information to us now, of the greater possibilities that are available here within and around us. Spend time with your children and their dreams right now. As Jung always said, that before there are times of war and conflict, it shows up months before that in the night, as nightmares for a lot of people. So please spend time with your children. Ask them, what are you dreaming? Help them to draw it out if they cannot put it into words, and help them also understand some of that, what they may be picking up on within the collective fields, and that they also learn, and that it doesn't mean that something is wrong with them.
Right.
It just means that they're sensitive and aware, and they're picking up on things. And
they're like antenna.
Yes, exactly. And help them to again, even when you, as a parent, if you're bringing your child to bed, stroke their head, stroke the world away from their energies, stroke it away, and as you touch their body, touch them, so that they now come back to their beautiful self, who they are, their safe space with life, so that when they sleep at night, their consciousness relaxes back into that beautiful pure oneness that is within them, and that sacredness and that safe place of life, so that they need to have a refuge where they can go.
That is so, what a beautiful, I just invite us to do that for ourselves.
Do it for yourself as well, exactly.
Do it for each other. Just like we pet our dogs and cats. That's so much love. We can all be petted more, and, like love, and feel yourself so loved. This has been such a loving field, Anneloes, and such a wise field of so many beautiful codes and invitations, and the feeling of like our emerging capacities. And you're such a wonderful embodiment, and you create incredible containers for people to go really deep. So I'm so grateful that I get to journey on this path with you.
I am so grateful to you, Sheri. Thank you for making this possible and holding this field and bringing all of this forth and who you are and everything you do.